What is up, my brothers and sisters, my agents of respect? It's your boy Trey Johnson back with another episode of the No Disrespect But podcast. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Always feel free to comment. Just keep those comments respectful. And if you're interested in supporting your favorite podcaster, yours truly, the link to do so will be in the episode description. Now, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Today was gonna be just a little fun episode. Not to say that we aren't going to have fun, but it's gonna be a little fun episode. Talk about, just some general sports stuff from a personal standpoint. Pick y'all's brain about maybe some things aligned with that. And so we're gonna have to push that off to next week. Why? Because the WNBA is in full effect. And I'm not just talking about the games, right? I'm talking about the drama that's going on with everything. I mean, obviously we know what's going on with Caitlin Clark, and it feels like you got people that are hating on her, you got people that are hating on her teammates and her counterparts, and you got, you know, all these unreal expectations and just things that are just kind of coming out of the woodworks of, oh, she's only getting all this limelight because she's white. Well, last time I checked, she wasn't the only white person in the WNBA. She wasn't the only white person to have a pretty solid career in college coming into the WNBA. So if you're gonna use her whiteness as saying this is why she's getting the credit and not what she's been able to do on the court, being a phenomenal scorer, leading the team that's not known as a basketball powerhouse in college in the Iowa Hawkeyes women's basketball program, leading them to new heights, leading them to two national title games. If it's not, again, her breaking the scoring record in both men's and or women's and men's, if it's not her selling out road stadiums because people want to see her play, if it's not the numbers showing what is happening in the WBA this year and how exponentially things have gotten better when before it was in smaller increments. Now we're seeing things happen that has been talked about for years that some obviously players and general managers and owners and coaches have talked about for years in the dub, but even fans like myself have talked about, whether it be, the charter flights or more exposure, more televised games so we can actually take in the product. Where when I was a kid growing up, I could watch essentially regular cable. We couldn't afford some of the more expensive channels and things like that. So I had to rely on, Channel 4, Channel 8, things like that. BET was Channel 24 on my TV. So didn't have it all, but I was able to watch women's basketball, and that's how I was able to grow appreciation for it. But unfortunately, everything's, going to streaming, and that includes women's sports that's trying to grow and can't have necessarily the access or the easy access that maybe someone my age when I was a kid had. So that kind of sucks. But we're seeing all this growth in the league, right? We saw, Charles Barkley and LeBron James, I guess in a way, scolding the women of the dub, saying, "Hey, you guys need to be grateful or don't get it twisted. A lot of these things are happening because of Caitlin Clark." I think LeBron went about it a little bit more respectfully than Chuck may have done, but the message was kind of the same. I think even James Jones kind of alluded to it of, hey, it's probably not even hate. Just sometimes when you feel like you're being disrespected, your response may come off as if it's hate, but it's just more so of a defense mechanism. All these things. I mean, you got Angel Reese tweeting like, hey, we got a dub last night. I'm paraphrasing. We got a dub last night, and with our charter flights, and it's not because of one team. So kind of doing a little backlash at Chuck when he was saying, you got to be grateful for Caitlin Clark and what she's bringing to the league. And what's funny is you got sides of the coin saying, hey, y'all need to stop bullying this girl. You need to, some people is going as far to say you got to collar her and let her go crazy just so the league can grow. And you got others saying, hell no, like we want to see her essentially fail. That's not the words they're saying, but that's kind of the vibe that they're coming with it. And each party or each respective area is telling the other to stop. And what I'm going to say is Neither of you have to stop. Look, I'm as basketball purist as it comes, okay? But I do understand business. And whether it's good or bad press, what is going on now, and especially the media market around Caitlin Clark and how people are feeling and things like that. And you got Angel Reese inserting herself in the mix, like, hey, now it's the Chi-Town Barbie, but the Bayou Barbie is here in Chi-Town, and we making some waves. We 2-1 on the season, things like that. Hey, this is good for the game. This is what grows it. Like, the NBA didn't grow just because Magic and Larry Bird were just great basketball players. Oh, it helped a ton that they were great basketball players. We're not going to be talking about the eighth or ninth people in the rotation and a rivalry they have. Nobody gives a damn about that, right? But knowing what Magic and Bird brought to the table, especially having a collegiate rivalry of sorts, having played one another in a national championship game, and then getting drafted into the NBA, and now everybody's like, okay, well, there'll be a collision course between Magic and Larry, and to be quite honest, their careers were forever tied to one another, and I think that's kind of what we're going to have with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Albeit Angel Reese being the 7th pick in the draft, but that doesn't matter. We knew from a talent standpoint, from a name recognition standpoint, she and Caitlin were the top two coming into the WNBA draft. And I think the same was with Magic and Larry Bird, albeit Larry technically got drafted a year before Magic, went back to school for a year. But either way, their careers were tied at the hip, and the NBA used that as leverage. And they kind of used it towards a racial extent. You had Caucasians at the time had their Larry Bird, and he was really good. He was playing for Boston Celtics. We know how Boston can be. Sorry, Boston. You had Magic Johnson in LA, a brother, doing some great things, playing his style of basketball. Like, it was great. Both ends of the country, right? And then being able to capture everything in between. And the NBA was able to capitalize that, take themselves out of the dark ages, and kind of catapult themselves to where by the time Michael Jordan came around, he was able to take the baton and run with it and continue to grow that game into what we see it now, just being a juggernaut of sports entertainment. And so that's what the WNBA has to be. Guess what? We've always had pure hoops. I mean, we've always had pure hoops in the dub, but we didn't necessarily have the storylines in the dub. And I think what's happening now is we're getting more storylines. And when you have more storylines, you get more publicity. And sometimes it's not the best. I think you have a lot of crazy bots on Twitter that are saying some stupid stuff on both ends of the spectrum. I think you have folks that are new to the game or new to the WNBA, because whether it be Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso, Cameron Brink, some of these top level players, we talked about this. We talked about these young ladies bringing a new dimension into this game, new eyes to this game, and that while there will be positives, and there will be positives, i.e., getting charter flights expeditiously, i.e., the jump in viewership, you're going to have some positives, but also the negatives is you're going to have some of those trolls and people that just want to be divisive, right? Just kind of coming into the game and coming into the discussions about the game. So where the WNBA probably had some pure conversations about how good the players were, how bad the players were, how things had to change. You're going to get some crazy legacy talk, all that nonsense that cannibalizes to some degree men's sports. NFL does a good job of trying to navigate those waters and keep it tight, but the NBA just lets it happen. They let it run rampant in their league. And so it's going to end up happening to the WNBA. And in my mind, would I love it to be more of a pure conversation about basketball? Yes. But guess what? The ladies been talking about how much money they want to make. They want to get that 50% revenue. Well, guess what? This is probably going to be the pathway to do it. And if it's going to take more stories about Caitlin Clark, and then it coming off as the league is against her and certain players in her class are against her, guess what? It is going to grow the league. Y'all know the real. Y'all know y'all been out here hooping, especially the vets that been holding the game down and the vets before them. The Trailblazers game, they know they've been holding it down. But at some point in time, it has to be somebody to break the mold. And that person just happens to be Caitlin Clark, right? And one thing that has kind of ticked me off a little bit in this discourse is how we are diminishing their value, these women's values, especially this new crop of women's athletes that have kind of come in the draft. When it comes to Caitlin Clark, they're saying, "Oh, pretty privilege and white privilege is why she's getting catapulted to where she is." I've seen far more pretty women. I've seen better basketball players overall as well, and they didn't. And I've seen white players, Diana Taurasi, like Sue Bird, Alina Deladon. Like I've seen them. They've come in the league. They dominated in the league, right? And they weren't getting the same buzz. And I think reducing it to whether it be sexism or racism, I just think is ridiculous. And then now you're starting to say, oh, well, Cameron Brink and Angel Reese are starting to get love based on what they look like because they have to be attractive. No, that's low-hanging fruit, first of all. I think that's really lazy to perceive that, right? I don't think it's just because the ladies look good. If they look good and couldn't play, nobody would care. You don't keep a job because you look good. You got to be able to play. And so if these ladies didn't have any type of game, they didn't have any type of swag, they weren't producing on the court, nobody would care what they look like. Nobody would care what their gender is. Nobody would care about their sexual preference. At the end of the day, you're a professional athlete. You got to be able to play. And so I think putting these tags on these young women is just doing a disservice. I mean, the numbers show why Caitlin Clark gets the credit that she gets. The numbers show why, Cameron Brink and Angel Reese are getting some of the credit that they're getting. Okay. Angel's coming in, dominating on the boards, breaking records, most offensive rebounds by a rookie. And I believe she has the most by any player in her first few games, doing the things she did at the collegiate level. Cameron Brink coming in, 3.5 blocks a game, almost 4 blocks a game, dominating the paint. Things she did collegiately. Could be an early front runner for defensive player of the year because she's showing her presence, right? Caitlin Clark doing some things that we haven't seen in a very long time at her position and from a rookie. Leading rookies in scoring. We're starting to see her get it offensively. We're starting to see her be better defensively and not foul as much. We're starting to see her and Aaliyah Boston build a chemistry when the referees aren't being awful and calling some fluke stuff on Aaliyah and she has to go sit down for extended periods of time. But we're seeing it, okay? So I think all this laziness, oh, well, no, it's definitely racism by her weightness is definitely. Well, can you tell me, because she clearly isn't the first white player to play. Angel and Cameron, and especially Angel, they're not the first what you perceive to be attractive women to play in the dub. So what's different? I think a more logical reason, if we want to be logical, I think the age of social media and in the NIL era more than anything. Because even before NIL, you had social media, but players weren't really allowed to market themselves as they are now. So now Angel Reese doesn't need the media to market her. She can do her own thing. She can have her TikTok. She can have her Twitter. She can have her Instagram. She can do her own interviews. So we get a sneak peek. We have more access to women's athletes than we've ever had. So it didn't matter how good they were back in the day. We didn't have that access that we have now. They weren't able to showcase their individualism the way they can now. And that has elevated the game. So when we're talking about, well, and now everybody's saying, well, you say this about this person, why you didn't do this? And why you didn't do that? Like there's this guy on Twitter, I'm not going to dignify by saying his name, but he keeps coming up with all this whataboutism, right? I'm tired of it. Like, stop saying it. Like, well, what about them? What about that? What about this? Guess what? Sometimes people have to go through some stuff to get us to the position we are now. And that's always been the case. There's some things that people that came before us went through to give us the opportunities that we have now. And so we shouldn't be, when it's time for us to take advantage of those opportunities, talking about, well, such and such didn't get that opportunity, and that's a bummer. Like, nah, don't be a Debbie Downer. Let's elevate. Let's appreciate where we are now. Let's look at ways to grow to where, guess what? The next group of athletes coming in, they're gonna be like, damn, thank y'all for like what y'all got was the standard, was set the standard for what we ended up getting. We got much better. NBA players talk about it all the time. How it was those guys that were playing basketball, but also having to work part-time jobs and still playing at a high level. That got them on TV and got contracts and got shoe deals and got all this money and generational wealth to take care of their family. Do all of them think that way? No. But if you really look at some of the elder statesmen of the league and some of the stars that have come in the league from all eras, they do their best to pay homage to the past generation. And I think these young ladies today are doing that, but it's almost as if like, man, it's almost as if like they can't appreciate what they're doing for the game because you got people always want to say, well, what about us? And we were doing this and we were doing that before y'all came. So it's not just about y'all. Okay, let's play that game. The numbers show that you would have had to do what you were doing before us for another 5 to 6 years to get where we got you now. It's okay to acknowledge that things have gotten exponentially better for the league you're playing in. Now more eyes are on your league. So guess what? Where they were playing around with charter flights here and there and everywhere, guess what? You got a fan base now that are I've been seeing the commissioner tag more times in the past month than I have the past 3 years. Saying, hey, you need to fix this charter flight situation. Hey, you need to fix, hey, why can't I watch my favorite players play? You need to make the game more accessible. And we talked about the WNBA having to be ready for it, and it's starting to see that maybe they aren't ready for it. Maybe they only have the capacity right now to show Caitlin. Because we know for months she was going to be a number one overall pick. So maybe that's where they put all their eggs in the Caitlin Clark basket, and guess what? Everybody's still going to get paid because of it. Just like everybody got paid because of LeBron James' ascension, everybody got paid because of Michael Jordan's ascension, everybody got paid because of Magic and Bird and their rivalry. Like that's all that matters. Like it's business. We have too many people trying to worry about who gets the credit when we need to be worrying about what's going to be going into our pockets right now. We can talk about credit at some point later. But right now, we all eating. And that's really the sad part about it. But at the same time, I'm like, look, we have to have these conversations. We're talking more about the WNBA. Yo, I'm telling you, I've been a faithful member since the late 90s watching the WNBA. This is the first, like in the past month, I have heard more segments about the WNBA than I have ever had in almost 30 years of living. I've heard more about the WNBA across national platforms than I've had my whole life in this 1 month. So is all the publicity good? No. I mean, they're taking angles of, you know, is Caitlin Clark benefiting from sexism and or pretty privilege and white privilege? Uh, is Angel Reese taking a shot at Caitlin Clark? Um, what's going on with the Aces? They got 100K from the city of Las Vegas, and now the league is trying to make a big deal about it. Like these are things that probably would have went under the rug. I mean, we're talking about a teammate stopping her other teammate because that teammate was about to go mess with somebody's ex-girlfriend. Like, these are things that we weren't discussing before, but we can now. And yes, there's some toxicity to it. It is. But guess what? It sells. The NBA just got a $7 billion TV rights deal that they're going to split between all the owners, and the players are going to be getting paid. Some players are going to be getting paid north of $100 million. Do you truly think in your heart of hearts that $7 billion, for the most part, was because of the product on the damn court? No. It's the storylines. It's the who's gonna go where, who's gonna be drafted, who's gonna be traded, who's gonna sign. What are the coaches gonna be doing? What are the soap operas going on across the NBA landscape? That is what is driving these large mega deals. And guess what? The WNBA is right there. The money is right there. Let's go make that money. Go make the money. Let the media say what the media is going to say. Because guess what? You might not like what they say, but because they're writing at all, it's growing the game. Beggars cannot be choosers, ladies and gentlemen. You can't. You, you can't. You gotta let it happen. And once we get this money, then we can start telling our stories. Then we get to a point where the WNBA athletes don't need the media. Now we going new media, right? Now the star players in the dub are having their own podcast and breaking down what we're seeing in the dub. And then in the off season, guess what? You can get you another check now because you so box office. Guess what? You ain't even gotta play overseas. We ain't gotta have a Brittany Griner situation anymore because now you're getting paid to stay in the States. Now you can go cover the NBA, you can cover the NFL if you want to. Like you can cover the WNBA off season, like whatever you can cover collegiate sports, the world will be your oyster. But you cannot let the petty shit get in the way. Let the writers write what they want to write. Let the TV personalities say what they want to say right now. Your moment in the sun is coming. The numbers are showing that your moment in the sun is coming. Ask yourself, when is the last time that a WNBA season has had this much buzz? When is the last time that every single day there is a segment about the WNBA and is not having to have a former WNBA member be the one having the lead of discussion because y'all don't talk about it? The top sports shows and segments in the nation are now covering the WNBA every single day. And sure, we can thank the vets for because they were working on it. And yeah, I mean, we had a segment on First Take once every 5 months, so we was already doing this. Now you're getting it once every top of the hour. The game has grown. We are here. We don't have to talk about the past. We don't care about like the new players that everybody's crediting. Guess what? Every time they're in front of a microphone, they're crediting you. That has to be good enough right now. It has to be. Because if you're going to continue to attack the writers of the what about me and all that bullshit, guess what? They're going to stop writing. They're going to stop talking about it. And when you stop talking about it and you're out of sight, you're out of mind. And not even this draft class, not the next draft class, not the draft class after that can save you. But right now, if you ride this momentum, this new buzz that's in the league, where the commission is gonna get it together, she's gonna make it more accessible for fans to watch y'all. And when it happens, y'all do what y'all do. But go make that money. That's forget about the other stuff. Forget about who gets the credit right now. Just go make the money. Continue balling like you've been balling. The storylines are gonna write themselves. We already know that there's going to be a collision course between the Aces and the Liberty, but that's not what's selling right now. What's selling right now is a rookie on an 0-5 team, a team that had back-to-back number one picks, a top two pick in 3 of the last 4 drafts. But if you watch the game, they're starting to learn each other. What's selling is a force in Chicago by way of Maryland, Baltimore to be specific, and down in Baton Rouge, and Angel Reese that talk that talk, but can also walk that walk. Look, guess what? We talking about somebody just with their rebounds. Who gives a damn? She only shooting 30% from the field. They 2-1. Who cares? We're going to pretend that the Chicago Sky were a bad team. They're not a bad team. They are not the Indiana Fever. The Chicago Sky made the playoffs last year. They traded their best player, Kalia Copper, who has been balling, by the way, for the Phoenix Mercury. Got to shout her out. They traded their best player for a top 3 pick. They got Camila Cardoso. And then they traded back in to get the 7 pick. I think they swapped. I think they were like 8 or 9, and they swapped to get the 7. Go get Angel Reese, because I guess the other teams in between were too stupid. They didn't think that like Angel Reese was better than who they picked. I mean, Dallas Wings, I know you needed a guard, but why pick a guard when you got Angel Reese? Washington Mystics to draft Aaliyah Edwards. And look, I like Aaliyah Edwards. She's not Angel Reese. You know, and you had it all. Like, we're talking about business, right? You had the hometown girl. Pretty much. This is her area. She just bought a soccer team in your city. And you missed the opportunity. But it's just not here nor there. I think Chicago deserves it. I think Coach Teaspoon and how she operates, Angel is the perfect player for her. I think Camilla's going to be the perfect player for her too when she gets healthy, which she should be returning next week, I believe, from that shoulder injury. But again, back to my point. We're talking about those 2 rookies. We're talking about 2 rookies on 2 different teams, one of which hasn't even won a game yet. And we got the Phoenix Mercury on a 3-game win streak without Brittany Griner. We got the Las Vegas Aces really not missing a step, even though they missing the point guard in Chelsea Gray. We got the New York Liberty, who actually had their winning streak ended by the Chicago Sky, right? Like, we're talking about who are the best teams in the league. I think we all can agree that the Aces and the Liberty, when it's all said and done, are going to be the 2 best teams in the league, 2 teams in the finals. But right now, what is selling is that young lady in Indiana and a young lady in Chicago. And guess what? I will almost guarantee that their matchup on June 1st, I believe it is, will have a higher rating than the WNBA Finals, than any game at WNBA Finals. And I'm just assuming that it's the Aces versus the Liberty. I am willing to believe that maybe a team that will still probably win this when that moment comes, and a team with maybe 3 or 4 wins when that moment comes, will have a higher rating than the championship series of the league. Because it ain't about just good hoops anymore. Well, we still want that. We're still going to get it. But we got storylines now. Stories sell. You got to get with the program and stop whining about who's getting the credit. Because guess what? If you keep whining about it, the numbers will hurt your feelings. And they're hurting your feelings right now. The shit ain't opinion. It's fact. These 2 young ladies are doing things exponentially better than your league has seen. And that's okay. That's not saying that y'all didn't put in work. Y'all didn't do the things necessary to get us to this point, because you did. If you weren't doing the things that needed to be done, they wouldn't even have an opportunity to be in this damn league. And I think them and all the other young players have made that very fucking clear. But who gives a damn if Joe Schmo, who had never even watched a WB game, doesn't understand that right now? Who cares? They'll find out soon enough. But right now, ride that wave, make that money, ball the hell out. We'll acknowledge you. You'll be acknowledged for sure. But it's now time to keep the eyes on the product. Let's keep the eyes on the prize. And the odds on the prize is 50% plus. So whatever it takes for us to get to 50% plus, let's make it happen. And whether it's Angel, Caitlin, Cameron, Camilla, Rakia, if it's going to be Paige next year and Ozzy and then we got Juju coming in, and we got Hidalgo, we got Flaw J, all of them. We keep saying it. We keep saying it. It's happening. But you can't be mad at how it's happening. You got to be happy that it's happening at all. And it's happening real fast and really successful. If it was a failure, I would be with you. But it's a huge success. Keep winning, keep grinding. Anyways, that's it for the day. I just had to get that off my chest because I was hearing too much on either side. And look, I know everybody wants each side to stop, but guess what? As long as we talking, money is to be made. But what has to change is that I think those internally need to understand what's going on. And it's not disrespectful to you. We understand what you have done and what you still do. But all eyes is on Indiana and Chicago. And we just got to embrace that and accept that. Now, if there's anything that I said that offended anyone, and I'm sure I have, that is a good thing. It's an opportunity for me to learn, and it is an opportunity for you to teach me. All I ask is that you keep it respectful. Peace.